Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode. I am very excited. I've been trying for 2 or 3 seasons to get this guest to have a conversation with me, and the time has lined up. Today, I have Jill Simonian, who is the Director of Outreach and co-creator of PragerU Kids. PragerU Kids is a part of PragerU, but its mission really is to get incredible resources about morals, character, the Constitution, patriotism in front of families and children so that families and parents can help gird their children up for the world that they're living in and going to live in. I am so excited. There's so many points that I want to talk about today, whether it's merit-based education or some of the divisiveness that we have seen happen through the educational system, or just the question, can America survive with an unpatriotic youth? How important is it that our children understand the nation that we live in and the Constitution? So we are going to enter into a great conversation. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. They know what they're doing at PragerU Kids. They handle it well. They give free resources, and you're going to learn a lot about a lot of things. So let's lean in and be informed. Welcome, Jill. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have a conversation today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk to you.
Well, I want to get into all the PragerU and all of the things. There's so many topics. I'm trying to figure out what I don't want to talk to you about more than what I do want to talk to you about. But I thought, let's just start with a little bit of your history, who you are, what you've done, what your past is, and then we'll get into what PragerU is and PragerU Kids and what you're doing. Okay.
Sure. So I tell everyone, whenever they ask me about my background, I say, let's just start this whole thing off by saying the position that I have been assigned to with my job here at PragerU, because I do think it is a divine assignment. I've said that since the beginning. The position that I've been assigned to here is something that was completely unexpected for me. It was not something that I ever pictured myself doing. For those of you who are, your listeners who are familiar with PragerU, I am the on-camera host as well as co-creator and writer and producer for several of our PragerU Kids series, which everyone can find everything for free at PragerUKids.com. So I'll get that out of the way. But my background began, I'm dating myself, but 20 years ago in mainstream media. I started my career on television as an entertainment reporter. I helped launch a entertainment news network that was all about movies. If any of your viewers or listeners or were ever familiar with a cable network called Reel's Channel that was TV about movies, I was one of the co-founding hosts, and I did all the red carpets in Hollywood, all the press junkets, behind the scenes movies. I covered the Oscars, the Golden Globes, all of this fun, exciting stuff. And I did that for a few years. It was my full-time job. I worked at a few other television stations in Los Angeles doing entertainment news and pop culture reporting. And then when I got married and began having kids, I have 2 children, young teenagers now. My entertainment news job serendipitously stopped. A contract ended, and I wanted to be home with my kids, so I ended up shifting everything in 2010 to the mom blogging world, and I launched a website, a mom blog, and I was on the front cusp of that mom digital influencer thing that now, quite frankly, has gone cuckoo chaos rampant.
100%.
But I shifted everything to parenting and lifestyle, and I continued my work on television talking about parenting topics and family lifestyle. And then after the lockdowns in 2020, I landed here at PragerU Kids, and that's sort of it in a nutshell.
That's great. So will you tell the audience, just in case they're not familiar, about PragerU in general, and then how did PragerU Kids, was that launched at the same time, or did that grow out of PragerU? I'm curious. Right. I don't even know.
Yes, totally different. So PragerU.com is a nonprofit educational media company. So PragerU has existed for, I believe we're on year 14. Yes, because last year we celebrated year 13. And Dennis Prager, best-selling author and conservative talk show host, everybody knows and loves Dennis Prager, God bless him. He obviously is, this organization, this nonprofit is his namesake. It's based on the ideas and the philosophy of Dennis Prager, one of the best thinkers in our modern times. And the co-founder co-founder is his best friend, Alan Estrin, and the CEO is Marissa Streit, who is a force to be reckoned with in all of the most amazing ways. You can look all of these individuals up online. It's incredible. I've learned so much from them, and I'm very, very grateful that I landed here. But PragerU started 13 years ago with the idea that to amplify Dennis Prager's gift of explaining very, very complicated ideas in very simple terms. And we're most famous for our 5-minute videos that explain everything from morality and the Bible and the 10 Commandments to social issues to biographies of historical figures like presidents and world leaders, to ideas, to freedom of speech. We literally have, my gosh, I think now we count over 600 5-minute videos. And these are, again, complicated ideas.
Library. Yeah.
Yes, but that's literally the tip of the iceberg. We have, if you go to our website, PragerU.com, you can find literally thousands of videos. Much of our content now is, well, we have our 5-minute videos. We also have a series called Stories of Us, regular everyday people telling their stories about how something changed their lives, how their perspective and worldview changed towards morality, towards the better after going through an experience in life. We have Dennis's Fireside Chats, which is a treasure trove of a library of all of Dennis's just incredible philosophies on life. Dozens and dozens of series. I literally can't keep up. We have mini documentaries that tackle some of the most polarizing and controversial and confusing issues of our day. And that said, PragerU, again, has existed for about 14 years. But PragerU Kids started in 2021, and that's when I was brought on. Our CEO, Marissa Streit, said, very transparent story that I think I've told many times, but in the middle of 2020, right in the middle of the lockdowns, when my children were not attending school and they were forced to be on Zoom classrooms, which was not an education at all. Marissa Streit found me online, and we were, I believe, in a couple of the same Facebook groups here in Southern California. And I did not know her and she did not know me, but she noticed that I was for the first time speaking out against overreaching government and really calling on parents to think about what really was the best thing for our children during that time of chaos and confusion. And she sought me out and she said, how would you like to come in and do a 5-minute video about what children are learning in schools? So I did. And it was a surprise, and I came in and I did the video, and about 1 month after I filmed that video, and the 5-minute video is still on our website. It's literally called, What is Your Child Learning in School? And about a month after I filmed that video, I got a phone call from her, and she said, so we're going to start a parent and teacher group, and I think we're going to make kids shows, but I want to bring you on as the lead personality, content creator. We don't know what we're going to do, but you're going to help me create it. Okay. And I thought, okay. And when Marissa tasks you with doing something, you do it. Right. It's her God-given gift. You do it, even if you've never done it before. And so April 2021, we launched our first series, Otto's Tales, for kindergarten through second graders. It's a video series. We started with folk tales to teach morality and knowledge, simplified knowledge of classic literature. And we now have over, I think the running number is close to 1,500 kids content resources between videos and books and worksheets and lesson plans for free on our website.
And that's what I love. They're free. So anybody, but it's there's a variety, correct?
Yeah.
In ages.
Variety in ages. So we have grade banded all of our kids' content. So there are series, and there's video series and shows and books and lesson plans for the kindergarten through third grade band. We also have series and books and worksheets and lesson plans for 4th grade to 6th grade. We also have for 6th grade and up, and everything. I mean, I believe we have 10, 11, if I'm not mistaken, 11 different series now, which each series has between 50 and 75 episodes, plus books, plus worksheets and lesson plans for parents and teachers.
This is what I love, just helping parents get connected to vetted resources that can be used at home, but you're also doing things, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, is your primary parent a homeschool parent? Who's the primary person coming to you? Is there sort of or is it across the board?
It's honestly, it's across the board. And it's funny because I actually get that question a lot, like, who is the focus? And people don't believe me, but literally everybody. It can be the homeschooling parent who needs engaging educational content that meets standards aligned materials, right? It could be that homeschool parent who needs the 10-minute videos about world history leaders, or who needs the series of books that describe the lives of each president. It could be that homeschool parent. It could be the parent whose child is in public school, right, who is not exactly thrilled with some of the cultural messages that their children are getting in schools from either administrators or peers. And it could be that public school parent who says, you know what, I want to teach my kids what it means to be resilient. I want to teach them what it means to have life skills, self-control. And they might share with them our video series for teenagers called How to do a great job interview, how to make sure your body is getting enough rest, how to limit the use on your phone, fun, snappy videos that are entertaining for teens that give them good messaging. It could also be for the parent who does not know how to tackle explaining complicated global issues. For instance, we have a series for 6th grade and up called Around the World. And this is a book series with also a video companion series. And the episodes are about maybe 10, 12 minutes long. And it explains concepts that, quite frankly, I don't really know how to explain to my kids. Why is it important that we have a secure border? Why is it important that people in Africa have access to clean energy? Why is it important that freedom of speech is a right that we must protect? Well, because we see what happens in Taiwan when it comes to the issues of freedom of speech. So, we have series that really cover everything.
Okay, so while we're on the topic of education, I know you're passionate about merit-based education, and we've seen so much unfold in the schools, what parents are thinking, what parents are exposed to. Just the topic in general of merit, it almost seems strange that we have to have a conversation about merit-based education. But Can you share a little bit, when you say that phrase, what you mean by it, but also why you're passionate about it, and why this is so critical for parents to get a hold of, even parent students, but parents need to grasp this.
Yeah, and this is something that I never honestly thought about prior to being here at PragerU, especially PragerU Kids, and really diving into what was actually happening in the majority of schools across the country. So I'll say this. So before the lockdowns of 2020, my kids were in our local public school, and we were very happy with that. I attended public school. My mother was a public school teacher. My sister is a public school teacher. I was a cheerleader for public schools. And one thing that I never really took notice of when my children were very little, when we were in our public schools, was that there was no recognition, and this is just at a very baseline level, and then I'll expand upon this as we, in a couple minutes. But there was no recognition in that public school, and my kids were 4th and 5th grade at the time.
Okay.
Of academic achievement. And I'll give you an example. The school, by design and direction of the school district that we were in, and we live in the award-winning school district in California. I'm not going to name it, but I'm just going to tell everyone the school district that I happen to live in is in the most awarded school district. Accolades upon accolades, okay. This school district, though, however, at the elementary school level, did not recognize academic achievement. And this is something I never took notice of before. There were never any assemblies that recognized kids for being on the honor roll, being on the high honor roll. They didn't recognize kids that were, I'll say this, the high school no longer has valedictorians because it's not seen as inclusive, okay?
Yes.
This is something I never thought about before, okay? Now skip to me coming here to PragerU, and I'm diving into education news to really, start building up my knowledge about what's happening across the country. I start seeing and noticing, as many of your viewers and listeners probably have too, that all of a sudden colleges are dropping the requirement for standardized test scores. All of a sudden, the University of California system, prestigious system that most people can't get into, by the way.
Exactly.
No longer require SAT scores for application or admission. Many high schools in my area and across the country, I started noticing, were eradicating the concept of having valedictorians. I then started noticing how schools, many schools in California, as well as, I'm just going to say it, left-wing school districts. School districts are supposed to be neutral, but here's the issue of the day. Education is not neutral. We know that now.
We know.
Many
yes.
left-wing progressive school districts and states were lowering the high school graduation requirements. I know that a few years ago, I remember an article about New Jersey schools lowering the requirements for high school graduation because they thought that it would be more inclusive and that it would serve the students well if more kids were graduating high school. But here's the problem we have. Now, after 5 years of this nonsense, we have kids graduating high school, going on to university, some of the most prestigious universities, and they're now being required to go back and take math that they should have been proficient in the 7th and 8th grade. I just saw an article the other day.
At an expensive
At
rate.
Expensive, we're talking, I mean, literally, I want to say, somebody correct me if I'm mistaken, but I want to say that it was Harvard University, Harvard University within the last year was required to offer basic algebra to their students because too many of the students at Harvard University, the most brilliant minds in the country, mind you, did not show proficiency in basic algebra. So what's happening is that when we lower the standards, when we take away achievement, when we take away rewarding kids for merit, and allowing them to excel in classes in elementary school, junior high, high school, we're dumbing down our country. I mean, literally some of the most prestigious elite private high schools that I know of personally here in California and from other states, when I have parents and teachers correspond with me and send me DMs on my Instagram and so forth, they're saying that their schools have been eradicating accelerated academic programs for students who are exceptionally gifted in the name of equity, because they don't want the other students to feel bad. So what happens is when these schools put forth these initiatives, for an equitable education, we've all heard that word. Equity is not equality. Equity essentially dumbs everyone down so that the students finish and land at the same level. It's not going to be a level up. It's going to be a level down. And it dumbs down our society. And how can you have a free society if people are not informed and educated? You can't.
You can't. One of the things that has just absolutely blown my mind is the fact that in most school districts, you can't give a zero. You can't 100%. Give a zero. The 100%. Lowest grade you can give is a 50%, which means you've done half the work. Mm-hmm. Right? Is a 50% when there's no paper. It's so it's a twofer for me. It's we're dumbing down. We're not required. There's no standard. But also we're lying. You did not do 50%.
Yes.
of the work, which is not going to go well in the workforce. I mean, it's not preparing students for life. Let's just say even there's a student that's not high achieving academically, and that's not necessarily they have a hard time in school. It's not their thing. But on the flip side of that, it's like you're going to probably do better than some in the real world when you get a job, unless you don't think you have to work. That it does not prepare our children for life. And I think it's just critical. It's so important that when the standards are lowered, they shoot for the standards. We all shoot for standard. I think one of the other things that it just comes back to mind, but I remember having this, we started, my husband and I and a couple of other people started some non-traditional schools in the Atlanta area, ran those for a while. And I remember in the midst of sort of opening and getting things going and talking to parents, thinking to myself, Common Core, okay, everybody's going to say the same thing at the same time, the same way. Teachers have to explain it the same way. They need the same answer. It doesn't matter if you're in Idaho and you're a 15-year-old boy and you're working on a farm, or if you're in Manhattan living on, we've got to all come to the same thing at the same time. And just a moment in time when I thought, when else do we shoot for common?
Right.
There is no other place where we're like, I know, let's get up today and see if we can just reach common. I mean, that's just not even the way God designs us. So to shoot for, excellence or achievement in the areas that you've been designed and you're passionate about, and those things that you're not designed for. I'm not ever going to build a bridge. I don't understand geometry.
Me neither.
Right?
Don't worry. We're
Good. But I can learn perseverance, and I can learn that I don't get an A in everything, and I can learn diligence, and I can learn follow through and resilience and all those things from the things that are more difficult. So when we dumb everything down, make it equal, we're essentially creating robots, which we've already got our hands full with the robots, right?
Right.
We're creating robots. We're not developing people. And holding those standards high is so critical, and we're not necessarily thinking about the character that comes or doesn't come when we do these things for a whole generation.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because everything truly does. I mean, look at how that does mesh together. When you do not have a sense of, like you said, needing to persevere, when you have not been given when you have not been provided with the requirement that you have to discipline yourself in order to achieve something, that doesn't build character, which then allows for, and that's a whole other thing. So that now you have a society who we're not only talking about doesn't have any sort of, now we have a lazy society, a dumbed down society, but we also have a society who does not have good character by default.
Right. No critical thinking and no character. That's a disaster. That's a disaster.
And that's where we're at right now. I hate to say it, but that's where we're at right now.
Well, we are. And so when you think about just, that's one of the issues that we've seen in education. But I think another one, and that you all are doing work around, is this divisiveness. And the divisiveness that's happened in and through, culture in general, but I'm specifically through the path of education. And can you talk a little bit about how you all are tackling that and what your thoughts are on what you're seeing? Are we coming out of that? Or are people tired of it? Is this still a thing? But what are you seeing around that topic?
I think, personally speaking, a few years ago when we were shouting about the divisiveness along racial lines, along gender lines, along, just instructing kids to really, what makes you different, the obsession, the over-obsession with, I call it toxic diversity. I'm not saying, we are all individuals and we all have our own heritage, and it's amazing. I'm Armenian American. It's amazing. However, we are all Americans first. So when the toxic diversity took over and aimed to divide students by every category you can possibly divide them, to force them to see each other as different. It rips apart the fabric of our nation. And I don't say that as hyperbole, but it rips apart the community. So you're no longer seeing yourselves as part of the, oh, listen, we're all Americans together here in our community. You're ripping that away from children, and it's a tragedy. I think a few years ago when we were shouting about that, a lot of people rolled their eyes and thought, oh, they're, there they go again. They're making this up. They're making it bigger than it is. I think now many people are now looking back and saying, oh, you know what? That wasn't an exaggeration. These children truly were divided. And I think now I do find a little bit of hope in seeing that recognizing that we are unified as Americans is a much, despite our differences. And that's part of being an American, right?
That's right. Right.
We want to disagree. But I think people are now seeing the value of patriotic education. And there's still the critics who wrongfully accuse patriotic education, the idea that we can love America through our stains of the past, through our faults, through our differences that we're constantly trying to mend. There are critics who wrongfully accuse patriotic education of being propaganda, but there are more and more people now, I think, that are understanding patriotic education is essentially understanding that the United States was founded with Judeo-Christian values. That's a fact. If you look at our original documents, if you look at the most first documents and writings that the founding fathers produced, you will see unequivocally that America was founded with Judeo-Christian values, period, fact. I think people also are beginning to understand that patriotic education does include being unified, that we all can agree that our Constitution is the most brilliant document of liberty ever, but also understanding that patriotism includes being able to disagree with each other and being able to dispute each other's point of view and having knowledge and understanding that can argue with each other, but also at the end of the day say, okay, agree to disagree. You do things that way, we do things this way, but we're all Americans, so we're going to have to learn how to live together. We're going to have to learn how to get things done together. So that is a little bit more hopeful. A few years ago, I do think that that the majority of the schools were obsessed with teaching children how to actively hate America. Mm-hmm. I think there are many schools, and particularly the teacher unions, that still have that as their North Star, unfortunately. But I do think that we are starting to see a return to reasonability in many school districts across the country, just based on what people have told me about how, maybe the school districts did bring back putting up the American flag, or they did bring back recognizing Constitution Day on September 17th. These sound like little things, but they're really big things.
They're really big things when we've swung as far as we did. So I wasn't even going to get into this, but I think I am. Civics. Part of not understanding the Constitution, part of, I think, what, sort of took us so far away is that much of what we would call civics in school for the past few years has really been action civics. It's not what maybe I went to school to learn, where you're learning about the founding fathers, you're learning about the Constitution, you're learning about the three branches of government. I call it like the schoolhouse rock thing. You just forget, and it's like, oh, what was that? I remember that song, right? That there was some foundation that was laid that at least you could go back to, versus what we call civics now in a lot of schools, which has nothing to do with that. It's really training children how to be activists. And I think one of the things that a lot of parents don't understand is it's not training them on the concept of being an activist and how do you become an activist and what does that look like. It's not the skill. It's here's the skill and here's what you're going to be an activist about. It's not asking a child, what are you passionate about that you want to stand for? It's not that. It comes along with the how to and the this is what. And so do you, what you all are doing, teaching civics and teaching about patriotism, takes us back to what we would have called civics that is not civics now. Is that a fair statement?
I think you really hit it on the head, because now, just as you said, there are only a handful of topics that public schools, unionized public schools in particular, I'll say that, are allowing students to recognize and encouraging them to become activists. And I will speak as a California mom, because we know that, like it or not, what happens in California often bleeds and infects the rest of the nation.
It does. It really does.
Yeah. So in California and in Los Angeles Unified School District in particular, a few years ago, LAUSD was actively implementing the Black Lives Matter organization's Diversity Week. I don't know if that is the official name off the top of my head, but that's what I'm calling it. It was 1 week in February, and the Black Lives Matter organization, and I remember looking up, it was all public info. I literally Googled it and I printed it out from LAUSD's website. There was 1 week in February where Black Lives Matter had organized a Monday through Friday activity plan for kindergartners through 12th graders, and it literally involved have your students make signs about intersectionality. Take your students to the streets and march with them. These were literally the instructions. And many LAUSD schools enacted and implemented these particular directives because they did it under a banner of diversity. So that's one example. And I know that, the past few years, I've seen countless articles. There was I believe it was an elementary school class where the teacher, it was one of their activities during the day that the kids make signs about Black Lives Matter in particular, and they take it out to the street, and they took these kids off campus and did a picket march somewhere. And I wish I can remember the school district that did that, but I can't. Anyways, and then another example, the entire month of October in California is dedicated to LGBTQ plus education and awareness. October 11th, specifically in LAUSD and other districts too. This isn't just in California. Yeah. October 11th is dedicated to National Coming Out Day. And again, if you are a student in these schools, and let's just say that that is not your particular passion, should you not recognize it, you are very likely to be shamed and bullied and called a lot of names. And it's very intimidating for kids and parents and families and teachers and administrators. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. I will say that, no matter who you are. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. But to bully children into forcing them to say something or think something, that's compelled speech. That's against our Constitution. But it's happening in schools.
Yeah, and I think, what you're talking about in terms of just understanding the Constitution, I think there's even another level of this, because we are seeing parental rights in so many places, not just states, but it could be a district. Parental rights are under attack. I mean, we've got story after story after story of information being withheld from parents across the nation in schools, both public and private. And so I just this idea of understanding the Constitution, it's not enough anymore to just go, I can go back to my Schoolhouse Rock days and kind of pull that up. We have to understand what our rights are, but also how to exercise our rights. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
And so
it's a very difficult thing. Yeah.
They're difficult. And so if we don't even have the basis, if we don't know our constitutional rights, if we don't understand, we haven't reviewed the Constitution in a few years, it's so critical not to just say, hey, our kids need to be learning this in school, but getting to a point where we understand we probably need to figure out what we're unifying around. It's been a few minutes. And so that we can help our children understand and navigate it. So I love all the work you're doing on that. I have just a couple more questions for you. One is this: well, I'm going to go back. How about this restorative discipline? Can you explain that topic, please?
I don't mean to laugh, but I can't help it, because this to me is one of the most unfortunate tragedies that I've seen unfold, particularly in California schools. And again, I repeat, my sister is a public school teacher in one of the most wonderful, non-unionized, largest school districts in California. She's been a teacher for 20 years. She has seen the decline and demise of what California directives and misguided laws have done to our classrooms. And I'm going to give you an example that she was literally telling me about 3 days ago. She was telling me this story through the lens of extreme sadness and disappointment, and I don't want to say despair, but she really is at a loss now, because I'll tell you the story. There is one particular child at the school that she works at. It is an elementary school. There's a handful of children, but in this particular instance, there is a child who continues to, I want to say, do physical harm.
Okay.
To others, peers, students, teachers, talking about ripping things down off the bulletin board, causing a spectacle, extreme behavioral problems. It's very sad. The child needs help. However, the teacher in the classroom, despite the physical harm, the verbal abuse to the peers and the teacher, the physical destruction, ripping things down in the classroom, causing a mess, disrupting an entire class of 30 kids, the school's hands are tied to, and they are unable to do anything to try and help this child. They are unable to suspend the child. They are unable to expel the child. They are unable to put this child in any kind of a positive and productive help-giving situation, because it is seen as uninclusive, and it is seen as pointing the blame, so to speak. And this is, these guidelines are outlined by active California law. The state of California does not allow children to be punished for behavior or violence of any kind. I literally think, don't quote me on this, but I literally think that someone would literally have to murder someone to be expelled or suspended or face consequences in a California public school. It's that bad. So now you have a classroom of kids who are unable to learn, who go to class in fear. You have a teacher who cannot do anything to try and help the child or discuss solutions with the parents because of this concept called restorative discipline. Restorative discipline sounds great because it uses the word restore and it uses the word discipline, but that's not what restorative discipline does. Restorative discipline does not allow consequences of any kind to be delivered to the student or individual who has caused the problem, who is at fault. And it's unfortunate, because without consequences, how are we going to maintain any kind of an order in our schools? How are children going to learn? How are they going to be safe? A lot of schools talk about the climate of care that they offer. That's the buzzword. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging under a climate of care. Go to your public school website. I guarantee you're going to find those buzzwords on the website. You will. But it's not a climate of care when children are going to school in fear and teachers are fearing for their safety, because a child can throw a chair across the classroom and not face consequences because of this restorative discipline. It's tragedy.
Yeah, it's a tragedy for so many reasons. That child so desperately needs help, and so how's that child? I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but what does
Right.
life look for this child when they're not
Correct.
corrected? You know, I mean, they're
Correct.
you just said elementary school. There's a long haul, but the groundwork's being laid right now. So what does that look like in high school? The loss of learning for everyone that's not loving. It's not loving to tolerate that for the child. Loss of learning across the classroom. But, you start to think about what I think 75% of our states have a crisis with educators. I mean, they're in crisis mode with the shortage of teachers.
Yeah.
And you understand why when teachers are being hit and punched and chairs being thrown, not everywhere, but it's not just in California. I mean, these reports are pretty consistent. So when we look back and we say, okay, parents, where does this start? We have to train our children up. And then we want to partner with people who, are following that same path. And it becomes very difficult when you're getting something at home and you're not seeing it at school. There's not consistency. What's up and what's down and what's right and what's wrong. It's very difficult. Okay, that leads me really to my last question I want to ask you. Well, maybe one more after this, but parenting trends. You've been in that realm of parenting for a while now. Are there any specific trends that you're seeing right now in parenting as you hear from a lot of parents, just in how they're approaching their families, how they're approaching maybe education? I'm just curious because you hear from so many people.
You know what's interesting? I am seeing online, which I'm sure you are too, this trend of gentle parenting, which I think...
Oh, don't get me started.
I'm glad we have the same reaction. I laugh because, again, gentle parenting. I mean, let's talk about the word gentle, right? Gentle is one of the, my side gig is that I teach Sunday school every week, right? So gentle is one of the 9 fruits of the Spirit, right? Gentleness. We revere gentleness. We want to be gentle in treating each other with love and kindness. And gentleness is a fruit of the Spirit.
Amen.
However, gentle parenting, what gentle parenting is, and everything I've seen online, is not a responsible stewardship of raising the child to be respectful, capable, resilient, knowing what it means to love God. That is not gentle parents. Gentle parenting is raising a generation of, I hate to say disrespectful, spoiled brats, because that sounds really brash, but it's raising a generation of delinquents who have no concept of decorum, who have no regard for this is how you treat another person. And that's the parenting trend. The trends that I see that continue to resurface that don't allow for any kind of boundaries, healthy boundaries for kids, it's terrifying.
Well, the result, the entitlement that comes with that, then you see, and I don't know about you, but I hear from teacher after teacher after teacher who will say, we know who is gentle parenting. We know. Because of the response. And there are some studies now that are saying it's sort of swinging back because parents are absolutely exhausted by it. They're doing their best. This is sort of the trend that's out there and we're following it. But negotiating, constantly is an exhausting, it's just not what parenting is. And so hopefully we're kind of swinging back to that. But I think some of the things we might be seeing in classrooms are a result of negotiating rather than leading. Leading in love and leading in gentleness. And right? And so as parents, we're leaders. You've gone first. That's what a leader is. And you've been entrusted. God's entrusted one of his children to you, and we're leading. We're not following our children. So we can learn from them, but we're not following them. So that's interesting.
And that's the thing that, I really, unfortunately, it really infuriates me when I notice in real time parents who are too scared to be the adult. It
Well,
disappoints
and
me and it makes me angry, actually. And I shouldn't be angry, but it does make me angry because they're cheating that child out of, like you said, proper leadership.
well, and I think too with parents, we've often, like, maybe we've been drinking the Kool-Aid a little too long, that we don't have what it takes to raise our own children. I mean, God did
That's it.
not give our children to the state. He did not give our children to a school system. He entrusted a child to a parent to navigate and discern and to lead. And there
Right.
has been, I mean, we've been told you don't have what it takes. You don't know what you're talking about. And, that's a drip, drip, drip that maybe a lot of people
Yeah.
didn't even realize that was a narrative that was out there. And so really encouraging parents, you've got the Lord. He's entrusted you. You've got what it takes. Now, who are you partnering with to move forward and the
Right.
things that you value? And with the biblical worldview. So one last thing I want to just ask about your resources. You're also, I think you're partnering with a state. Are you partnering with schools in Oklahoma and some of the content is there? Am I right about that?
Yes, yes, yes. So it's really exciting. So, again, when we started PragerU Kids in 2021, our primary goal was to create the resources to give parents the tools to share our American values and morality and history and all of these things that maybe, that we didn't know where to start in teaching, but that we wanted our kids to learn. And in the last 2 years, we are now on our 11th state partnership, which is
11 states.
11 states. So in the states of, oh my goodness, we're going to name them: Oklahoma, Florida, New Hampshire, I believe Montana was on that list, Texas, Alaska, Louisiana, Idaho. We have partnered with the state education departments to allow teachers, the state has approved that teachers can use our materials in the classroom should they see fit, should our PragerU Kids Constitution Guide fit in with their state standards for teaching the Constitution or civics, or should our financial literacy course, cash course, enrich their lessons that they are delivering to 7th or 8th graders, that
That's
have to do with
amazing.
financial literacy. So our materials are not mandated, they're not required, they're not forced, they are merely on the approved vendor lists for 11 states right now and counting for teachers to utilize should they be helpful to them. And it's really exciting because, listen, I can't think of another resource at the top of my head that offers colorful, fun, engaging, interactive books, educational books that have been written by credentialed educators about each president, from George Washington to, I believe, our final president was Jimmy Carter. I can't think, we have, all 40 some books about each president. So for a 5th grade teacher to say, okay, it's time for your 5th grade president report, here's a resource for you that has been fact-checked by all the scholars, it's amazing.
That's incredible. Congratulations. That is a
Thank you.
huge feat. That's a huge feat. Well, so much I could talk all day, but the resources and the fact that the resources are free, it's just phenomenal. And I really pray that parents run and don't walk to grab those up and to teach their children and expose their kids to the truth. And so, thank you for being on today, and thank you for all you're doing. It's phenomenal, really.
Thank you so much. And listen, I'll say, our country and our communities and our schools have never, ever, ever been perfect, right? But we like to think that PragerU Kids, we're offering the antidote, we're offering solutions, we're offering the opposite of the things that you don't want your children to absorb in some of their classrooms. We're offering the help and the materials to combat some of the lies that they might be being taught. So, I say, as long as we're always aware and alert and involved and active with what our kids are learning, and we're presenting them with the truth, you're going to end up in a good place.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, and keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Thank you.
Keep the presidents
Thank you so much.
rolling.
You too. You too.
Yeah. Great. Have a great day. Hey parents, I hope you enjoyed that time with Jill. She is remarkable. She has been in front of parents for a very, very long time. She's hearing a lot, seeing a lot, and she works for a phenomenal organization. I love the fact that they are putting these resources, so many resources together, and they're free and available. I hope you noticed she didn't just say this is for the homeschool parent, or this is for the co-op parent, or the private school parent, or they're in public school, they're in private schools, they're in homeschool settings, but they're also just for you as a parent. Listen, we're at a point where we are so far, you heard her, we've gone so far off the course of what is our Constitution and what unites us. And it's our responsibility as parents to sort of bring that back. Everything starts under the roof. Everything starts under the roof. We can send it out, but we can't abdicate our responsibility to make sure our children know how to stand in the world that God has, we've been placed in America. We have to understand what that means. And so again, I love how she says, does America get it right all the time? Absolutely not, because we're all fallen people. But we've got grace, and then when we walk in gratitude for what God has given us, and this document called the Constitution that will keep us united if we know what it is, it's an unbelievable tool. And they're giving us the resources to help us get the words to understand and to teach our own children. So I hope you pick up these little 5-minute snippets that she's talking about and just have a conversation at the dinner table. It's phenomenal. It's a great resource. And I hope that they help you, all of these resources, help you parent with purpose, disciple with direction, and leave an intentional legacy.